I started out in North Jersey in a family that was, I would say, started out middle class. And then my father became ill, very ill, when I was still in parochial school. And so money was always an issue for us. So as I like to say, I was a scholarship baby, first the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And then one of my professors, I guess I should back up and say that I was, and still am, I'm the first in my family to go to college. And I'm the first and only lawyer in my family. And I was sort of wondering what to do when I was at college, which path to take. And one of my history professors suggested I should look at law school, that he thought I had that, and I had an analytical mind or a rational way of looking at things that might bode well for a career in law. I was very, very fortunate that not only was I accepted at Case Western, but I also had a full scholarship. And that made all the difference, that I wasn't going to come out of law school with loans. And it gave me freedom of choice, as I like to think about it. So I then, I will say that I became very interested in criminal law. Just, people stories. And I like people. And I always tell people, lawyers are the helping profession. People come to lawyers because they have a problem they can't solve. And lawyers have to figure out how to solve it. And what more interesting problems can there be than criminal law? And really helping people, and not just helping people, but helping I hope, make the system better, make the system function a little bit better for the people who are caught up in the criminal justice system. On both sides, both the witnesses, and the defendants. You want to do what's right, what's just, and what's fair. And I was really encouraged by Professor Katz when he was at Case. He and I had a number of long talks about being a prosecutor and where to apply and things to think about. So I was very lucky. My second summer out of Case, I interned in the United States Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., and worked on what were then the abscam cases, which were one of the first FBI stings into political corruption. And that was, talk about a fabulous summer, as an intern, getting to meet the United States Attorney, Chuck Ruff, getting to meet the Attorney General, Benjamin Civiletti. I was a glorified errand girl, but it was still pretty glamorous to me. And that job, that internship, helped me get a position in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office when Robert Morgenthau was the district attorney. And that was the start. And I then was able to work in a variety of other state and local investigative agencies after leaving the district attorney's office. Took a bit of a turn when I became the first continuing legal education director for the Association of the Bar of the City of New York. And that job led me to get to know federal judges and federal lawyers, judges in the federal courts and lawyers who practiced in the federal courts, which led me to become the circuit executive for the Second Circuit. And that's sort of the CEO, the chief non-judicial officer, who oversees the federal courts in the circuit. And in the Second Circuit, that meant New York, Vermont, and Connecticut. But this career would never have been possible without Case Western Reserve. And I'm very proud to be a Case Western Reserve alumna. When I talk to, I would say, younger people about when they're thinking about law school, I always mention Case. And I always tell them to explore Case and to think about Case Western. And I'm very proud of the school that it is, has this initiative to raise $20 million to fund scholarships so that anyone who applies to Case Western Reserve Law School and needs financial assistance will have that opportunity. And it just, you never know who's going to be, the next great lawyer. But most important of all, who's going to be the next great public servant? And public service is important. And if we don't encourage students, college students, law students, to go into public service, if we make it so expensive that they can't do that, we are really going to be missing an opportunity in this country. So I'm proud of Case, and I'm really honored to be invited into the Society of Benchers. I'm also still stunned, can't believe it's happening, but very grateful and very honored and very privileged to be a Case Western Reserve graduate and to now be invited into the Society of Benchers. You know, you're in law school, you're reading cases from, you know, maybe the New York Court of Appeals, the California Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court, and other federal courts on criminal law, we'll just say. You know, then you go to the, you know, the district attorney's office, and you're in night arraignments, literally like night court. And it is completely different. You know, you are not quoting Supreme Court law. You are not quoting any law. You are trying to think on your feet on how do I make a bail application, you know, that the judge will agree with to keep it in its defendant, so I don't have the senior assistant calling me the next day to ask, you know, what was you know, how did I mess up this case? But it was great. It was great training. You learned to think on your feet. You really learned to be a lawyer, and Case does prepare you to be a lawyer. So I think the law school is just was a great place for me. It was a great place to be, and I'm very proud of what Case is doing, you know, to push things forward and to make it possible for students to go into public service. I think I've always suffered from imposter syndrome. You know, I felt that way at the University of Pennsylvania. I felt that way a bit at Case. I felt that way in the DA's office. Even as the circuit executive, some days you sort of think to yourself, you know, am I really here? You know, am I really qualified to be in this position? So yeah, law school, and maybe it was just me putting a pressure on myself. But I was tense, you know? and it's a different way of thinking. It's almost a means to an end in law school. You know, it's a different way of writing. It's a different way of starting to think about things, of analyzing things. And for me, that took a little bit, you know, the first semester of really getting used to that and really thinking about it. But I also felt, you know, as I said, there weren't as many women in law school at the time I was there. A couple of years after Title IX, so I was also that beneficiary. And I did feel that it was important for me to do well, so that people would say, you know, hey, yeah, we had women and they did well, and they're, you know, it's important to diversify and to bring them into the practice. I mean, when I went to the DA's office, there were very few women on the bench. It was almost, I was often the only woman in the courtroom, except for the jurors and maybe some of the defendants who were prostitutes. You know, so you learn to work in a man's world. And I'm happy to say all these years later that that's not the case, that it's the other way sometimes, you know, that the courtroom will be filled with women. You'll have a woman judge, you'll have a woman court reporter, you have a woman clerk, you know, women on the jury, women defense attorneys. And I think it's great. I really do. So I'm hoping that I did well enough that Case wasn't disappointed in me and in the career path that I carved. The federal, you know, it was really the circuit executive position. Frequently, there are 13 circuit executives based on 13 regional circuits, and a circuit is a group of states with the exception of the District of Columbia. And most of my colleagues all grew up in the federal system. You know, they came out of JAG in the military, or they started off in other administrative positions within the courts. And I was unusual that I practiced in the state courts in New York. And came in it at a different angle. But one of the things that allowed me to do is we were able to build a much stronger relationship between the New York State court system and the Second Circuit. And we resurrected this federal state judicial council, which is made up of both federal and state judges appointed by the two chief judges of the state of New York and the Second Circuit. And you look at issues that are apparent, may affect lawyers who practice in both systems. So for example, sometimes taking pleas in state court, you have to be cognizant if your client has a possible federal charge. Usually it's an immigration or things like that. Because if you become a convicted felon, even in state court, that may lead to your expulsion under immigration law from the country. So, and like bankruptcy is another one where it's good for state practitioners to understand the ins and outs of bankruptcies when they're trying to help clients, save their houses, avoid foreclosure, that sort of thing. So, it was really great to have a foot in both worlds, and also to meet people, colleagues, judges from around the country. And what you realize is the issues are all the same. How we look at them depends on your geography, your culture, the traditions in your circuit, in terms of how you approach them. And it's always good to learn something new. So the newest phase is I'm now for the first time ever in private practice, working as a consultant advising nonprofit organizations on strategic planning, succession planning, financial sustainability, governance, fundraising in the sense of developing fundraising plans, not doing the actual fundraising, but helping them to figure out, how to reboot, recharge, be effective, and hopefully attract donors. So small to medium clients, which is nice because you can really see the needle move. And, they have great missions. They're trying to help seniors age in place. They're trying to help the homeless get out of being homeless. They're trying to, prevent substance misuse by young people. They're a bar association that runs a legal clinic for LGBTQ plus community, as well as anybody else who walks in with a legal problem. These are all wonderful missions and all good things, and you want to keep them going. You want them to be able, because it's exponential how many people they can then help. Well, I want to say first, again, thank you to the nominating committee, to Case Western Reserve Law School for the privilege of being inducted into the Society of Benchers. And I want to say, to alumni, it's not, the institutions are long-lived things. But what's important to remember is that when you are part of these institutions, as students and then later as alumni, it's all about us. It's about the relationships that we build and that we make, both with each other and going forward. And I think it is important for alumni, not just to give back, but also to pay it forward and to support these institutions that, regardless of your experience, gave you your on-ramp to your career. And that's certainly what Case did for me, and for which I am really and will always be grateful. So I am happy. I donate regularly, annually, to the school. I think I'm about to go on to the Law School Alumni Association board. And I think there are wonderful opportunities to be ambassadors for Case Western and to proselytize all the good things that the law school is doing.